And welcome back. We are now going to go ahead and look at how we can go and refine a motion tween to really kind of change how we want to present that animation. So to get started, before we do anything else, we first need, of course, create that motion tween. So I'm going to choose a 2-second animation. Let's just go ahead and insert frames. And I don't necessarily want the clouds themselves to be animated. I just want to animate the plane character here. So I'm just going to go to that layer. And I'm going to right click in and create a motion tween. Of course, we will get the prompt here about wanting to make that the symbol, so that is perfectly okay. And of course, now we have a motion tween, and I want to make sure that when he stops, I want this guy to end up maybe over here. And we now have our motion tween path. And just like before, we can now look at this individual path here, so we can go through and say, maybe every couple seconds, I want this to be at certain places. For example, maybe I want him to be reaching up and trying to touch this cloud, and then he's going to come back down here, and then I want him to again start going back up into that cloud until he flies out. And that's a nice little path here to kind of start. So if we look at this animation right now, we of course have a nice kind of path for him to follow. Of course, we can use our Alt key to really help refine this a little bit. But I want to go a little bit further here with this actual motion tween here. So to do that, I'm going to bring up the timeline a little bit just to make this a little bit more clear, so we can actually dive in and look at the motion tween with a little bit more finesse. So to actually dive into this tween, I'm going to right click on the layer that I have, and you can see we have up here the option not just to remove the motion tween, but to refine the motion tween. And when I click on that, it's going to open up this kind of secondary window here. And of course, it shows our path here, very linear, of how we have this performing right now. And you can see here at the bottom, we have this add ease option. So it allows us to add eases to this motion tween. And if we click on that, you're going to see a bunch of kind of presets that are loaded here within here. So for example, we have simple eases. We can look at that. We have slow, medium, fast, fastest. We have slow start and stops. We have bounces and spirals. We have other eases. And so let's just take a look at a couple of these just to see how these will affect things. So for example, if I click on a sine wave, you can see the easing here that is applied here. So if I go ahead and click on sine wave here, all right, and we can see now the sine wave effect is now this new set of dots that is in place here. And when I play this one, you can see how it has now oscillated kind of back and forth between those two places, because then again, you can see it's going from the start to the end destination and back. And we have other ones that we can look at, and we can also manipulate these easing values here too, to kind of really change this. So for example, you can see that sine wave was at 3 easing. Now it's 2 easing. And when I look at the 2 easing, you can see now he's going up and he's heading back. If I wanted that maybe just to head there just once, I can change it to simply 1 easing. And you can see the sine wave now has really kind of flattened out. And so when I play that one, you can see how he now follows a much more curved path. We of course have other options that we can look at. If, for example, I go and look at a square wave here, you can see what that would look like, or a sawtooth wave, or even a damped wave. And this one looks pretty cool. If we look at this one, again, let's choose maybe just a single easing here. And if we play that animation, you can see how that has changed in just that little bit of using a different preset. There are, of course, other ones such as stop and start. We have our bounce and spirals again. But if we do just say a simple one, let's just have them maybe do just a medium ease. And now if we play that animation, you can see how he has now traversed that. And all that does is affect the pacing here of these dots, for example. And so you can see how things have changed. We still see our original path here that we had created manually, which is this kind of light blue line that's behind it. And if we let's say we look at this with a slow line, it's at 50 easing. If we play that one, you can see it's still very similar to what we had, but there are some differences. And the nice thing about these two is that even though these are in effect, and I can come in here and manipulate these points, we can also change some of these curve points as well. So we can start affecting this, which of course would affect the overall presentation. So we still have a quite high level of control with the different pieces here. I'm just going to undo that real quick just so it goes back to our original configuration. And if I say, I don't really like any of these presets, I want to take it back to just my manual animation, I can click back here on that where it says simple slow, and we can change this to no ease. And you can see the text now says add ease. And so now when I play that, of course, it is now back to my very basic motion tween that I had started with. And this, of course, is just affecting different pieces here. So if you notice, we have locations for both X and Y coordinates of our graph here. So you can notice like this, for example, is showing the X position moving from one side of the graph to the other. This shows the Y position of how he is traversing up and down across this canvas. And so we, of course, can also control both the X and the Y in different values here as well. And there's a lot more that we can kind of really sink our teeth into, but I think this is a good introduction just to say if we wanted to have a little bit more control or we want to try and map a certain effect, how can we do that without having to manually go through and control each of those different points? So what I want you to do is go ahead and create your motion tween, add an ease of your choice that's going to look natural for him to kind of bob through these clouds here, and go ahead and try to do this with your own animation. Try to go ahead and create some images, import them into your canvas, and see if you can go ahead and create your own kind of traversal effect. And you might use a different ease because maybe he's, instead of him being a plane flying through the sky, maybe it's a boat just trying to rock on the ocean. And you could have different effects and different eases that are going to manipulate that for you.